If you're ready to remember who you are on an energetic, sacred, and soul level, to seek your truth, to feel your power, and to shine your light brighter than before, if you are ready to awaken on a deeper level, then I, Kymberly Castro, welcome you to Quantum Speaks. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Speaks. I am Kymberly Castro, your host. And today we have a very special guest, Brigette Patton, and I'm going to invite her in. She's a super beautiful person. I was trying to remember when we first met, and it was like 2018. So probably like 5 years ago or more that we met. And I just remember taking a spiritual coaching course, and it was like a 12-week long thing. And you were like one of the first people that I met, and you were super intuitive, and I felt like you were like me because I'm super sensitive, empathic, but you were using it in a different way than I was using my skill. So it was so cool to be introduced to that way, that you could have like a spiritual business or be a coach using your intuitive gifts to help other entrepreneurs and spiritual people. And you've come so far, and you have 3 beautiful little boys, and you're an emotional intelligence coach. So I want to hear a little bit more about what that means. And you use your intuition to focus on using, you're an intuitive, super intuitive, empathic person, and you're using those skills to raise your little beautiful boys in an alternative education. So I want you to introduce yourself and explain what that means, because I know there's so much stuff to unpack with that, because I don't know. I have a 30-year-old stepson. He's out of the house, he's getting married, all these things are happening, but he went the traditional route. There was some public school and private school, but I know since the pandemic and all this stuff, it's different. And now, being an intuitive person and mother, I just want to hear from you and let our audience know, what does that mean, and what does an intuitive parent do or use, to raise their kids with these skills. So welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I know we've played a little bit of synchronicity tag, where when is it going to line up, and when can I have the capacity and you have the capacity to have me on. And it's been a roller coaster on my end, getting situated with the boys and just kind of getting my bearings with really being a mother, and really deciding to embrace alternative schooling and the way that we do education.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a emotional intelligence coach for 10 years, working with my horses, and they're the ones that really helped me embody that ability. Mm-hmm. They're natural emotional intelligence coaches. They do it, it's their first nature as prey animals. They are able to sense what we're feeling before a lot of the time we even do. So they'll mirror what it is that we're sensing and feeling through actions or through body language or whatever it is. And, it really intrigued me. And because I'm in Michigan, I needed something that I could do in the winter as well. And so through the training with the horses, I was able to really hone in on my abilities and see that I was sensing, like you said, we're both mm-hmm. highly intuitive and sensitive. So I was able to see that, oh my gosh, I was actually noticing the same thing the horses were noticing. Oh, wow. And so I was able to bring that to Zoom calls and work with people all over the world with their emotions, and being able to tap into those and understand what they were communicating.
Oh, wow. I've never even heard, I didn't realize you were doing that. So I'm like, yep. I saw pictures with you with the horses, and I'm like, I love horses. And I knew you were doing something, but I didn't realize you were actually helping others. So that's amazing. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm glad that you feel excited and enthusiastic about it. I don't do this work really right now. I'm on a pause or whatever. I'm kind of at my limit, right, with what I do with the boys.
Mhm.
It really takes up all of my time and attention, which I'm very grateful that I have the ability to do that. You know, I'm running our nonprofit, the Soul Embodied Sanctuary here at we've got 20 acres in
Wow.
Howell, Michigan. And we basically just, it's for the animals and for people to just be in peace and harmony and spend time with nature and just really find that balance and that inner peace and ability to navigate your compass, because a lot of the time things can get so loud and noisy, especially like you said during COVID. A lot of people got at their max and would come here to get away from just all the energy and all the excitement and, you know, intensity. And here is a place to just kind of, it's really close to town, but it's secluded. The forest really blocks all the noise and everything out, and it's right on water. So it's just a really big blessing to be able to raise the boys here and to have people come and also be able to take part in that.
Oh, I love that. I'm getting chills. You're talking. I'm like, I'm getting chills everywhere. I'm like, oh my God. So what is it that you're doing that you could tell maybe like the listeners with your boys? First of all, let me ask, I don't know how old they are anymore. They were smaller 5 years ago. And so how old are they now?
So I've got a 7, 9, and 11-year-old,
Oh, wow.
and they have gone in and out. Like, I've tried probably 5 different methods, schooling, like different places to take them. And they all had great tools. We learned a lot from each facility that they went to. Just ultimately, you know, I'm over here coaching and everything, all these people. And it turns out that all those skills that I gained really needed to be used with my boys and their gifts, because they're also sensitive in different ways. You know, the way that I thought that they would be navigating in the world is totally different than, you know, the way that they actually are. And, you know, it was just really clashing with my belief systems and the messages I was getting from spirit and the guidance I was getting and the coaching I was doing. It was nearly impossible for me to line it up with the school systems are 100% doing the best they can. I understand, and that's my problem. I understand where they're coming from and why they have to do the things that they were doing. However, it wasn't in alignment with what I was teaching and what I was getting message wise. And I had to pull them home. I couldn't, it wasn't making sense to be having things one way in our household, and then they're going out in the world and being treated totally different than the way that we're trying to set our standards here. So there really wasn't any other way but to bring them home.
So what kind of example can you give the listeners? I'm just curious, like what kind of examples did you get from your intuition, other than, okay, I'm teaching them this, and then at school they go learn something? What were you feeling? What were you sensing from spirit, from guidance? What, just a gut feeling? Were you seeing something? Were you hearing something? Because our listeners they're intuitive, and everybody's on different levels, and they have kids. So what is it other than just didn't feel right?
So what didn't feel right? First of all, my middle son is extremely empathic and sensitive. I don't know. Do you follow human design at all?
I've heard of it. I've dabbled in it, but it doesn't resonate with me at this time.
I won't go down that path. But I will say for the listeners, if any of you have dabbled in human design, I don't put a lot of weight really in any method or system. For me, though, about maybe 4 years ago, I got into human design. And I basically, when I do aura readings or energy readings, the messages that were coming through, I would then like look at the chart, and it's exactly what I was seeing. So I have the ability to just kind of see those dots and connections and within people's nervous system and their energy field. And my middle son is a projector, if anybody knows what that is. So he really is here to guide. So he's here to guide. He's here to kind of facilitate the energy of the generators and kind of like move that and direct it. And what was happening at school was, you know, all of his teachers would say how bright and smart and how fast he would get things done. And he wasn't really able to go in his own flow.
Right.
And it was just, you know, it wasn't really working because he gets really hyper focused on something that is really inspiring him that he wants to work on, and then now he's having to switch gears and do this other thing when he, in his own body and his own personal autonomy, doesn't really feel like he needs to be learning this. And the comments he was making to me even at 7 was, you know, I already know this stuff. Like, I don't, and I felt the same way in school. I'm also a projector. And so like I could go take the test and I'd get 100% on it without doing any of the work. Like I just would take in the information from my surroundings without having to go through and do the work. And I'm not saying every child needs to do it that way. I'm saying this was specifically for him, what he needed to do. My other two definitely need a little bit more practice with that kind of stuff. So we do, you know, more book work or whatever, but it's not like an every single day thing. Like, I don't believe we need to do that kind of stuff every day, all day. Instead, we do project-based learning. So we, like, my middle one had an entrepreneur fair that they did here. There's always resources in your community if you're looking for it. Like, Spirit will guide you. Spirit will show you. Like every single time I do something or ask a question, I'm shown the resource. If you're listening, if you know how to listen to your guides, you're going to be able to listen to your kids. It's the one and the same.
Right.
So, but the entrepreneur fair allowed us to prepare him for, as a project, he chose to build bird feeders. So we got the materials, we were able to do measurements. He was able to see, you know, how much does it cost to purchase the materials as opposed to what are we going to sell the stuff for? You know, like what's the energy exchange? What am I putting in my time? And then he got to practice selling these items at the fair. And so he was out there with his little table and he sold every single one of his bird feeders.
Oh, wow.
He was able to see, you know, what were people's objections? It reminded me of coaching so much. What are the people's objections? And I didn't even say anything to this kid. He just naturally heard the objection and then came up with the next question. So he had his list of questions he would ask before he even offered the bird feeder.
That's amazing.
And if they said no about something, he wouldn't even bring it up. And that was something I was able to be by his side and say, not every person is going to be a match for what you're doing. And these are the lessons that I feel and what I've seen within society with all the coaching I've done that are fundamental, foundational pieces that we as humans really need to have so that down the road, we're not dealing with anxiety, depression, all of these things, because now we trust and we understand all of these fluctuations of emotions. And that's where the emotional intelligence piece comes in. It's every emotion has a message. There isn't a good and bad emotion. They're all communicating something. What is it? And what is the tool for this specific human that they need in order to interpret it or hear it or be able to allow for that emotion to move in and through them?
That's beautiful. And do they go out and help you with the horses and the animals? Are they connected too? Do they feel, you know, that helps them? Do they help with other people that come, you know, when they're, I don't know how you do it, but do you have people that come in just, they schedule something and it's like a retreat, or they just come and walk around freely, or how does it work? And do the kids help with that? Are they connected with?
Right now, I'm not doing any coaching. We actually sold the horses.
Okay.
This fall will be 2 years
Okay.
after having horses for many, many years. It was hard. But I realized that that wasn't their path. That wasn't what they were, you know, really being led to. And me as a guide and, you know, their facilitator, I felt like it was important that they were able to show me what it was. That's the child-led learning. It's like them revealing to me what it is that they are really passionate about. So like I said, the middle one, he loves building and engineering. He loves using the weed whipper and mowing the lawn. My two older ones, the 9 and 11-year-old, they can already drive the zero turn tractor or whatever. And so it's like, they are showing me through their habits and what they offer to do or what they volunteer to do, without me having to force it. And of course, there's also times when there's pushback and there's boundaries and challenges that need to be established.
Right.
But it's like an explanation, like, listen, this is a community. There's things I don't always want to do as well,
Right.
but this is necessary for the community to thrive and for all of us to be able to work together, and pointing out, like, how much energy do you have right now? How much energy do I have right now? You know, if you help a little over here, how am I able to now have extra energy to, you know, go to the park or the beach or whatever it is that we want to do, or the library or the movies or whatever we want to do that day. And so, like, my oldest one, he really loves nurturing the animals. He is really good at caretaking. Like, that's his gift. And he always gets the message visually. That's one of his spiritual gifts. He can see exactly what I'm imagining in my mind. He picks it up so fast and then will verbalize it. And so that's the kind of stuff that I'm able to point out to them all day while we're together, because I think it's really important. Those are the types of things that can really influence you as an adult later down the road. If you aren't self-aware that these kinds of things happen to you when you're now a teenager and in your 20s and stuff, that's when it starts really messing with your mental health, because you don't realize what's you and what's somebody else. So I'm hoping that with these cues that he's able to see that, oh, this is what I'm picking up on. This is mom, you know. And same with my middle one, he can feel an emotion a mile away. And so that's why he was having such a hard time at school, because the very
You're
first
feeling
time,
everything and everybody.
yeah. And the very first time I met one of his teachers, it's like I felt that wall immediately. And I'm like, no wonder he's having a hard time in this classroom. You know, he's a very affectionate, you know, loving child. And so, like, now he's feeling like he's a bad kid, and he's coming home saying he's a bad kid. It's like, that was breaking my heart. I could not have that. There absolutely was nothing that I could do to change the way the dynamic is. This is something that I had to take at, you know, home. And then my youngest, he's 7, but he already, since he was 3, he has this gift. I say he's a button pusher, but he can find where that trigger point is in your body, whether it's emotional or whether it's a physical trigger point. But he does it in a way, I'm helping him hone that in so that he can do it in a way that's a release and a healing solve, instead of like, you want to like jump through the roof. But he's very interested in the human body. He wants to know how muscles and tendons and all those things work, the bones, the organs. That's what he's really drawn to. Like, he wants to spend a bunch of time studying that. So that's what we study. You know, that's what we spend a lot of our energy and attention on. He likes the herbs and homeopathy and things that work with balancing the body energetically. So that's what he is really into. And the massage, like, he's already got different techniques down at 7. And like fascia release techniques. We just like, we'll see a video and we'll look at it, and then he'll do it on my back or my neck or whatever. I was getting migraines a lot. I'm not anymore, thankfully, but yeah, so they each have gone in 3 totally different directions that they didn't really have the space to be able to do that, you know, in a school setting. They couldn't do that with that many kids in a classroom. That would be too time consuming, and there's not enough resources to do that kind of thing.
Well, it's amazing that you're such an intuitive mom, and that you actually listen to yourself, you listen to your guidance, your soul, and that they're so sensitive. These kids are so sensitive, and that's so fascinating to me and completely different. So I wonder what they're all going to be, especially you're talking about like trigger points and everything. And I've been getting a lot of downloads myself for because a lot of information I get is about the body and about entry points and access points and trauma and past life points and timelines, all in your body and your energy, and how to like release all this stuff. So he's working on it physically right now. It's just amazing just to hear that these little humans are walking around and they are next healers, and you are helping them become who they're supposed to be without stifling them, but keeping them, grounded and keeping them organized, and helping them to grow and just stay structured, because even though they're going with the flow, you're teaching them the way they understand, in a way that they need. And maybe a lot of people can't do that, but for the people that are thinking of doing something like that, the parents, the intuitive parents that are feeling like they're being guided, that something's off, something's wrong, and it doesn't mean that their school's wrong, their teacher's wrong, it's maybe just a time for them to do something different. What advice would you give them? Like, was it a easy transition? Did you take all three kids out at the same time? Was it one at a time because one was feeling a little bit different than the other and feeling a little bit more intensely? Like, what advice would you give to them that if they wanted to go a different way, a holistic way, alternative way of education?
That's a wonderful question. There are so many resources out there online and even in communities that are sprouting up. I think humanity as a whole can really sense that this is needed.
Mhm.
It's just, I personally believe it's unnatural to have that many kids with just one adult
Mhm.
overseeing. It doesn't really, I don't feel, integrate them into a community type dynamic. For us, it's a huge blessing. We've got my parents on the land as well. And then we have usually over the summer, we've got somebody that's camping because we have so much space here. A lot of the time people are like in transition, and there's a lot of tiny home community people around here. And so we get to have somebody here that's kind of living for several months, that because you had to ask, are there people that come for healing or what have you? And it's more of us raising the kids together.
Mm.
And, my mom and dad, they take the boys a lot, and they're able to, share their gifts and their skills with the kids. So my dad is a builder. So being able, my middle one absolutely loved projects like that. He also works on like vehicles and that kind of thing. So the boys get to have exposure to that, and whether they end up latching onto it or not, it's really doesn't matter. They still have exposure to see what they're interested in. And my biggest bit of advice for people, I did pull all three of them home at the same time, because if I'm going to have one home, I might as well have all three of them home. That's my
Right.
mentality.
Okay.
Is to not put yourself in a box. It's like, I know some states have standards. We're really blessed with Michigan and the way that they do their rules and regulations. You're pretty much free to lead however it is that you want.
Mhm.
But there's certain skills that I know that they're going to have to have as adults. So like they're going to have to know basic math and that kind of stuff, but naturally through our day-to-day work, whether we're cooking or we're building something or whatever, like that is the school. Like that is them getting exposure to math, reading, spelling, whatever it is. And we correct it and we talk about it all day throughout the day. Like they're getting my energy 100% all day. We're just not necessarily going to sit down and do book work unless there's something that really calls for it. But I do have like a couple like loose guidelines for that. Like every week we might spend 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 3 days a week, actually writing, just so that they get the skill of writing and moving
Right.
their hand. They're taking in the world, like they all have bank accounts already. They're learning, they know what taxes and, all that. Like they understand how to function as humans in
Right.
the
I love
world.
that. Mhm. Very
And,
important.
science, whatever they're interested in. We study energy, the periodic table of elements, whatever's coming up for me and what I'm seeing in the world. That's kind of how I direct if they seem interested in it or not. Because I 100% have seen in not just adults, like one of the things that I did with emotional intelligence was helping people open up to what it is that they really want to do in life. Like, what do I want to offer the world?
Mhm.
And I know for a fact that we all come with an inner compass that already helps us navigate and pull in the resources that we need for whatever that job is, whatever our mission is here. And so if I'm teaching my kids to listen to their emotions, I'm helping them learn how to be resourceful. I'm helping them be able to move through the world. You know, there's the 4 intelligences, the mental intelligence, resource intelligence, emotional intelligence, and social intelligence. So if they're able to socialize and build relationships, that's my number one priority for them, is them to be able to have meaningful, deep relationships where there's trust and integrity and empathy and compassion and boundaries, being able to set boundaries with each other. That isn't really necessarily something they can do in a school setting. No. Because it's like you pretty much have to follow these rules because there's so many kids. There isn't a flexibility there. At home, you know, we do things a little differently. And that was the biggest clash that was happening, because, you know, if my child doesn't want to do a certain activity because he feels like his inner autonomy is like, that's not where my energy is supposed to go right now, I don't force them to do it. You know, like I know that they need that energy for something else. And so that's kind of how we do our schooling. We listen to the flow. We definitely have boundaries. There's a checklist of things that has to be done every day. I don't like clutter in our space. I don't like messes. And I point out that kind of stuff to them too, because their energy shifts when the messes are picked up and when they helped. They feel good about it. And now they're all picking different things. My middle one loves to clean the kitchen. So he'll like get after all of us. If we left coffee spots on the counter, he'll be like, hey, wipe your coffee up. And my oldest, he is really good at keeping the bedrooms picked up and clean. Like he'll clean those spotless till the floor is just really, it shocks me when they get a surge of energy like that and they want to help. And they're inspired to do it because, you know, you wonder if you're doing the right thing, but 10 out of 10 times when you listen to where that guidance is leading you, I feel like it's delightful. Like it's a delight to be able to see where your kids are leading you. It's exciting because if you're doing like play-based learning, and that's where we do project-based and play-based learning, that's where you're using your imagination. That's where you're tapping into your intuition. And play-based learning isn't me saying, this is how you're going to play, which is how I kind of started out, which was a nightmare. And that's the fastest way for me to end up beating my head against the wall.
But and for them to shut down. Yeah.
Yes. They don't, that's not them getting to choose. And so what they end up picking to do and play, it's like their creativity comes out, and it has been incredible to watch that unfold and see what they're really led to and what they're drawn to and what they really enjoy. So that's kind of how we do it.
And that works for you. And that I think that could work for a lot of people. So we're also not telling people go pull your kids out of school because they're having a bad day, because maybe they are where they're supposed to be. But it's about listening to your intuition. It's about listening to your kids. And to me, I don't want to stifle the kids and not really listen to them and connect with them, because we're so busy and people are working and they're going. And, you know, same with the kids. They got all these different sports and all the stuff they have to do and this homework, and they're going and everybody's busy. No one's really listening, communicating. And if we did start listening and started connecting, started communicating, then it would be a whole different world. And I know that, but it's not always what our parents learned, what they were taught, who they were, or even if they're around, you know. And I'm sure my mom was super intuitive. She passed away a few years ago. I just lost my sister a few months ago. Super intuitive people, but they didn't use their skills, you know, for the, in my opinion, for the parenting or to cultivate connections and really listening to themselves, you know, or let alone to the kids, you know, to the ones we're raising to be these adults that we want to put out into the world, you know. And if they don't understand energy or their own feelings or their own thoughts. And it's not about getting stuck in there and, I mean, there's so much that we can unpack with this, and this is just one short episode, but I am just, I am amazed that there are parents like you that are actually listening to themselves and are actually trying to raise good people to be smart, intelligent, have boundaries, to understand their own feelings, to have responsibilities, to be able to connect, to communicate, and to not get lost in their emotions. So it's not even about picking up after yourself. It's about, like you said, it's really energy. If everything's chaos and everything's a mess, then you're a mess, and if you don't know where this energy is coming from, then you're confused because you think it's all you, not your environment, not what's going on, not the person in front of you that's having a bad day, or they're tired of not taking care of themselves, or they're drinking, doing drugs, or whatever they're doing, but you're being affected by it. But you're teaching them at a young age because they're super intuitive. And maybe you have a kid that you're like, oh, my kid's not intuitive at all. They don't care. They just want to go play. If you really sit down to talk to them, you get the glimpses of them tuning into themselves, but you're either teaching them or they'll teach you. And if you're not listening to each other, you're missing the opportunity. So I am so glad you're here and just giving the people a different way to think, parents a different way to understand. There is different ways. Doesn't mean it has to work for every parent. It doesn't mean it's going to work for every child, because they're all unique. They're all different. Like you said, you have a 7-year-old, 9-year-old, and 11-year-old, 3 different boys, like 3 different things, but you're nourishing that, and you're helping them grow in confidence in their abilities and in their future. So I'm excited what little healers and what little men they're going to be. But I think the world will be better just from you having that connection with them and having that. So is there anything else you want to talk about or that we missed that you might want to tell the listeners about, not even just about themselves, but I like what you said before about when don't take, like you were talking about the human design, like you hear about all this different stuff and you're like, you get into all these different things and you think it's like the Bible and this is what you focus on. And then you're like, wait, but that makes sense a little bit, but then no, I gotta just do this. No, take what you need.
Take what you need.
And then let go of the rest.
Like the different schools, we took what we needed from each one. There were methods from each one that I really appreciated, that were really helpful for us in moving forward. And then, know when to move on, know when to let go, because there's always seasons and cycles for things. And teaching them that as well, that it's okay to let go and it's okay to move on and it's okay to be done with something. And also, when do we not need to follow through? So my oldest has a 4-H fair coming up at the end of July, where he's showing his cat. That was like a shocker for me. Again, I try really hard not to impress my own thoughts and feelings about something, especially when there's really no reason for me. It's just more like, okay, we're going to show the cat. All right. And then just finding the resources, because this is a new thing for me too. I don't know how to show a cat. I've never shown a cat in my life, or any animal for that matter. But this is a way for the agricultural, college, university, just about 45 minutes away. They put this on for the kids and for leadership and being able to build that in our community. So again, like being able to see what resources are around you and just be open to seeing that they are there. Because one thing that I've learned, and one thing that I always would tell my clients, is if you have the question come up for you, there's always a solution. Like everything's symbiotic. Everything is, light and dark, or yin and yang. It's like, if you're going to find the problem or the issue, then there is a solution, or, that's just how the universe works. Okay. And so, him wanting to show the cat, he's actually going to have to present in front of judges, which is hilarious to me because this is the child that would not do presentations at school, would get so freaked out when he had to get up and talk in front of people. And now he's practicing this speech for his cat showing. Like, he isn't demonstrating any fear whatsoever. He doesn't look nervous or, worried or anything. So I just think that's really interesting because he was so freaked out. Like, he was like literally in tears, hysterical when he would have to do anything like that. And it was just really working on his self-confidence. And so for him to pick to do this is
his idea.
It's just comical to me. It just, again, it's like my youngest with the trigger points and being able to let him know that he's actually tapping into releases. Oh, this is something I felt like was really important, especially because there's a lot of confusion around kids saying things the wrong way, especially younger kids and like even tweens. It's like they're really just trying to find the language or the sense that they have, and they're going in and asking a question or saying something, and they're really doing the best they can to communicate what's coming up for them. And my youngest has a knack for finding the pain point in somebody and asking the question that is usually taboo in society. Like, every time he's going to be the one that is going to point it out because it's quite often a pain point for the other person. And so just really being aware of that and being able to help with the dialogue and not shaming them or feeling guilty that your kid is saying something off the wall. And all my friends think it's hilarious. They're like, whenever we go, it's like a 3-ring circus because the way my boys are so free and, they're very high energy because they aren't like put in a box. They're able to let their energy move them forward. And so just really trusting your kids, trusting that your kids, and I would say this with horse training too, it's like there isn't something wrong with your child. There isn't something wrong with your horse when you're training. It's like they don't have the brain doesn't finish developing until what, you're like 28 or something. Right. It's like you can't expect these children to be able to make the decision. So that's why boundaries are necessary and you to be their advocate, to be able to speak up for themselves and communicate what's going on. We have to be investigators. We have to be advocates. We have to be able to listen and hear what they're trying to say to us, whether we pull them out of school or they're in the public school or private school. There's going to be encounters that they have where they're going to need these skills and tools, not just for school, but for the rest of the world too. And being able to help them hone those in and trust them rather than stuff them down, cut them off, because they get terrified of not fitting in or being ostracized from the community or being labeled a bad kid. And it's like, that is not the truth. And in getting labeled a bully, maybe even, or even the kid that's getting picked on, it's everybody that needs that assistance. It's not one or the other. Even going through teenage years, it's like there's something way deeper going on. And as adults, as wise ones of our community, we have to advocate for these children. We can't just label them and throw them to the side, even all the way up to 28. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that's still, your brain is still developing. You're still making decisions. I'm not saying we have to have more laws and rules. I'm saying there needs to be more empathy and compassion. There needs to be more understanding, and there needs to be more exploration and seeing what is at the root of this and where can we shift this and open things up so that there can be a different outcome.
So as you're saying all this, it's just reminding me of why I really try to help people. I couldn't figure it out for a long time, but just helping adults that are intuitive, and not even just adults that are intuitive, but people to trust themselves and their gut and to really pay attention to what's going on around them when people are lying, when they're not lying. And I'm not saying just, have your guard up and that everyone's lying to you and don't trust them, but especially listen to your children, because I was, my sister and I were sexually abused, the one that just passed, and by a family member that's still alive. And she wasn't believed. We weren't believed, but we weren't even asked. And then you're scared to say anything. So to me, like, pay attention to your intuition, pay attention to your children, really pull them to the side away from people and have these conversations and these times where they feel like to trust you. I'm not saying push and pull, but start to notice what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're
Get
feeling, if
involved
they're
in their
acting off.
world.
Yes, get involved in
Do
their
what they're doing.
world.
They
Yes.
will tell you naturally when you do what
Yes,
they're doing.
yes. And they might not even open up at first, but pay attention to what's going on around you, because there are people that either abusing, they're either sexual abuse or something, and you wouldn't even think sometimes, because it's the person that maybe they love you and they act like everything's fine, but you're not the one they're abusing the kids, the children, or maybe someone else, or an older person, a senior. I don't really know. And this is not about abuse, but this is awareness. This is awareness, to listen to yourself, to listen to people, to pay attention to what's going on. And that's all you're reminding me of. You're listening to your children. You're listening to what's going on around them. You're teaching them to be confident in who they are, to speak up if they need to, to not get stuck in different feelings, but to be able to express themselves without worrying about getting shut down or, being ignored. So I love what you're doing. I thank you for being here. And is there I don't know why that really, I feel it in my heart about the people paying attention to their kids, and it doesn't mean you're not paying attention to them, you don't love them, you don't tell them you love them, you don't spend time with them, but I'm like, really pay attention, really listen. Because when I don't know how old you are, but we didn't have cell phones in high school. We had to write notes, and if I missed a Friday phone call from my friend, I didn't know where anybody went, and I didn't have a car to get there. It's completely different world now. Like, everything's on the phone, everything is instant. And you have to be just paying attention to what they're doing, and just be involved in their life. So I love that you're doing this. And I think your boys sound just absolutely amazing, and they're so lucky to have you, and you're so blessed to have them and the family and the soul embodied sanctuary. And is there any way people could get a hold of you if they want to work with you in a different capacity or learn more about you?
I do have a YouTube channel, my Soul Massages YouTube channel. It's Brigette Patton, and I am doing videos here and there on the schooling. And then I've got old videos from my energy teachings and whatnot that people can go through if they're interested. We're at this time, I'm not, doing any coaching or anything, but my material is free on there. I mostly just want to kind of like get this word out. I feel like it just helps give people peace and, trust themselves a little bit more, things that maybe I needed to hear when I first got into this. So I love speaking on podcasts because I think this information is really powerful. And it gives the kids a voice that maybe they don't have the words to put together yet.
Well, we thank you for doing this and for sharing your story and sharing about your kids. And I'll have your information in the show notes if anyone wants to go check out your YouTube channel. But thank you, and I wish you well. And everybody else, if you want to reach her, it'll be in the show notes, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.